A Bloomberg scoop right now. Bloomberg News obtaining flight records from President Trump's trip to Russia for the Miss Universe pageant back in 2013. Let's speak to the reporter who broke that story, Vernon, who joins us now from Rome. So this matters because the president has twice given James Comey, when he was director of the FBI, an alibi for why this one report about him being in Moscow could not be true because he never spent the night there. You're telling us now that flight records show he was indeed in Russia. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've already known, based on social media postings, his tweets, some Facebook posts, that Donald Trump definitely was in Russia for 2 days for the Miss Universe pageant. But what we've got now is granular detail on the plane that he's said to have been on, which was a plane owned by his Las Vegas partner. And there had already been reports that this was the plane that he flew on. And what we did was got the flight records to see when it took off from North Carolina, where he had been for Billy Graham's birthday party, and to all the way to when that plane arrived back early Sunday, so almost 3 days later, at Newark Airport. And everything in between is just kind of details. But now, for the first time, we know that this plane that he was supposedly on left at a certain time, left Moscow at a certain time, and came back to New York at a certain time. And it's crystal clear that if he did say this to Comey, that he was there for more than just 1 day.
And Vernon, just to be clear, tell us about these flight records. If you know a given plane, this is all public information in terms of when it took off, when it landed, stuff like that?
Some of it's public information, and some of it you have to go through data brokers. In this particular case, we just paid one of the commercial flight services for the records pertaining to this particular tail number, and they came up in pretty good detail and matched what we had heard had been the case with this particular jet. One of the interesting things is that Trump's story to Comey, according to the memos, was that he got there in the morning, went to the pageant, and then after the pageant went back to the airport and went back to New York. And in a way, this partially vindicates what Trump had said, which is that, at least on the night of the pageant itself, only a few hours later, just after the after party, the plane took off before dawn. So if he misremembered half of it and remembered right the other part, that section of it does match up.
I mean, this is quite confusing because there's more than one plane. There's Trump's own Cessna plane that was involved and a separate private jet that's involved. Do we have concrete proof that the president was on the plane that we think he was on, judging by the routes that we're now looking at and deciding that he seemed to spend more time in Russia than perhaps he'd alleged to James Comey?
Right. I mean, this is what's an important thing about the flight records, is to just say where the airplane is. It doesn't say who is aboard the planes. So if we followed, as we originally did, just the ones that are owned by Trump, you would see that his Cessna went from North Carolina to New York. There's a book, and there's also a New York Times report from a year ago that said this is the plane that Trump flew on. So if we follow the plane plus the sourcing from those, the reader could conclude that he was on that plane.